Hi everybody, my name's Scott and I'm back with another video. For those of you who are just joining us, you may be interested in checking out my other videos first before you watch this one. We've been checking out 4 drum machines: the Vermona DRM1MK3, the Roland Era TR8, the MFB Tanzbar, and the Arturia Drumbrute, comparing the amount of sounds that they can create and doing side-by-side comparisons of those sounds between drum machines. What we're going to be doing this week is answering the most popular question that everyone always asks me. Which one is the best? Which one should I get? I get asked many variations of that question, but it's been a reoccurring theme. People want to see the conclusion of this series and have this discussion wrapped up. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at each of them and we're going to discuss their strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to do it in a very specific way. I've got a whiteboard here, and on this whiteboard what we're going to write are 4 categories. First one is price. Second one is going to be sound quality. Third one is going to be sequencer, and the last one will be sound customization. So here's our headings, and what we're going to do is we're going to put on each of these a line, and we're going to rate them in each of these 4 categories. Okay? Now the reason we're going to do this is because there is no one best overall drum machine. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses, and as you can probably tell already, there are some that would rank higher and some that would rank lower. Okay, we'll just rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 to 10. Okay, inputs and outputs maybe? So I've just added inputs and outputs to our list. You might have other things that you want to add to this list that help you decide, because you want to compare their MIDI features, or I don't know, there could be something else that's limiting you, like their dimensions or something, which is the smallest, which is the largest, which is the heaviest, which is the lightest. There could be many different criteria that you need to use for your decision-making process. I'm just giving you these 5 examples because this is the type of decision-making that you're going to have to do. Because like I said, there's no one drum machine so far that I've found that does it all. Has a low price, has a plethora of sounds, has a lot of customization, has great sound, has all these things. You can't find it in one box. And then on top of that, people would want it to be analog, light and small and magical, and that just doesn't exist. There's drawbacks to each design and trade-offs. Let's start with the price. The most expensive one is going to be the Tanzbar. The second most expensive would be the DRM. That's the Vermona DRM1MK3. But there's no sequencer on a Vermona, so it goes down here because it has no sequencer. The best sequencer, by the way, we're going to be jumping around on this thing. The best sequencer, by the way, I have to give to the Drumbrute, because it's pretty much based on a BeatStep Pro, and those are really handy. I think it's got the best sequencer. This one's actually easy to fill out. Let's go ahead and continue. I think the second best sequencer goes to the TR8. I think that the MFB Tanzbar sequencer works, but it's kind of a pain to use because it's so small. Back to price, we've got 2 more to enter on there. The TR8 and the Drumbrute, I think the TR8's actually cheaper. The sound quality that comes out of all of them is good, but there's a few factors to take into consideration. First of all, when you are able to just walk up to a machine, press play, and have it sound good every time, that sort of sound quality goes to the TR8, because obviously it's based on presets and you can just hit a few buttons and make it sound phenomenal right off the bat. But that's kind of cheating, so I almost want to docket points for that. So we'll go ahead and put it right here. And it's not analog, so. The Vermona sounds amazing when you get it dialed in right. But the problem is there's almost infinite sounds that it can make, which on sound customization, the Vermona's the clear winner there, because you can fiddle with it, and I seriously don't think that I've ever made the same sound with it twice. But sometimes I'm just like, okay, today I'm not going to get a good sound out of this thing, so I'll just quit. I mean, it's that variable. So it gets docked for that. Anyway, so that's the DRM1. Okay. The Tanzbar has incredible sound quality, and it's not hard to make it sound good. And I would say that the Drumbrute sounds decent, and the sounds that are good in it sound really good, but I would still rate it lower on the sound quality thing. It sounds actually better than a DRM1 on its worst day. To put the Drumbrute here. I said earlier that the Vermona DRM1MK3 wins the sound customization category. I think coming next would be the TR8, because you can select such a vast amount of sounds and then customize those on top of that. Then I think it would be Tanzbar, and then I think the Drumbrute. And that's because the Brute has almost the same amount of functions as the Tanzbar, but the Tanzbar, I feel, just pulls it off just a little bit better. For inputs and outputs, it goes the Vermona, then the Drumbrute, then the Tanzbar, then the TR8. So here it is. This is a finished list. For price, winning are these two, the TR8 and the Drumbrute. For sound quality, the Tanzbar, I think, is the fair winner there. It's got a crystal clear, really good sound, and the TR8, I think, is not far behind that. The DRM1, on certain days, can beat all of them in sound quality. Some days I just get it singing, and it sounds so good. Other days, not so much. And that's user error, probably. It's not, I'm not blaming that on the DRM1. Okay, up next is the sequencer. Drumbrute wins it pretty easily because it's got that step sequencer that was based on the BeatStep Pro, and that's one of my favorite sequencers. So I'm a little biased, I guess, but it's easiest to use, it's handy, and it's got a few extra features. It's got that probability, the swing, the randomness, and you can do that per track. It's really cool. The TR8 is a close second because it has a really good sequencer, but just not quite it. Then the Tanzbar, I think the sequencer buttons and everything are so small on there that I have to dock it points. But it is good and it does work, but it's just not as easy to chain patterns as the TR8 is, and it's not as handy to use as either of the Drumbrutes or the TR8s. DRM1 loses that category because it has no sequencer. Now we're on to sound customization. The DRM1 wins that category, and I think that's just because, like I said earlier, you can sit there and fiddle with it all day long making sounds. There are practically an infinite amount of sounds you can make with it. The TR8 comes in second because there are a lot of sounds and you can customize them, but they're discrete sounds, so you can switch between them. You can't get from one sound to the other by sweeping, so for that I have to dock it, and that's pretty much just because it's not true analog. But that's also one of its strengths, because if I know what style of kick drum I want, boom, I can hit it and then I can dial it in and have it very quickly. Where the DRM1, that's a huge weakness of it, is the time that it takes to program in that customization. But I'm still not docking it because it's the ultimate, I think, drum synthesizer. You can really dial in a really good sound if you have patience enough to do it. Obviously the Brute, I'm going to have to make it the loser, although I didn't make it all the way over here. It's just, somewhere here. It's customizable. It does have a lot of settings, and they are pretty decent ones for the most part, I feel, but they're not as diverse as the DRMs, and they're not as high quality as the Tanzbars, and the TR8 has the Tanzbar beat because of the fact that it has so many sounds to customize. So that's why I have them ordered that way. If you disagree, move it around on your chart when you're making your decision. For inputs and outputs, the DRM1 and the Brute have one output per channel, so really those should be tied, I guess. But the Brute, actually, I made it come in second because the DRM1 has truly one output per channel, whereas the Drumbrute has certain sounds that share an output. That's not bad because I usually don't use them all at once. So anyway, the DRM1MK3 does win that. Closely behind that is the Drumbrute. Then after that is the Tanzbar. The Tanzbar has 6 outputs, but they're shared between some sounds. So some sounds are paired on that output and you can't customize that. This type of thing is what you need to do in order to figure out which one you're going to get. Because you may think, okay, well, the price of these is right for me. So between the TR8 and the Drumbrute, which one wins the most? TR8, 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 Brute. Okay, it comes in second the most, but the Brute won this one. He's like, I don't care all this stuff you're talking about. It is boring. Which, that's probably what you're thinking too. However, this is stuff we need to talk about. If you need something like inputs and outputs and sound customization to be your most important thing, like if you're always working in a studio or something, I would say definitely the DRM1MK3. If you were a studio guy who needed something that was cheaper, then you would probably go for either the TR8 or the Drumbrute. If it's most important that you have individual outs, then I would say Drumbrute. If it's most important that you have good sound customization, I would say TR8. Okay, if you are a performer, you would probably care about inputs and outputs and your sequencer. Your inputs and outputs is the DRM1. Your sequencer is the Brute. Depends on how you interpret this. This is why when people ask me, I'm like, I really don't know what to tell you because it depends on what you do and what you want to use it for. And if it's your first machine, you want the best all-arounder, the best bang for the buck. That would mean low price and lots of options. I think you get that with the TR8. I mean, look, it is consistently near the top except for in inputs and outputs, which in most cases, if you're a beginner, you're not going to be using that many inputs and outputs right off the bat. If you want to look at it the other way and you want definitely a piece of analog gear, but you want something starter, I would say the Drumbrute would be a great way to go. The Tanzbar is a great machine, but it's hard for me to feel confident recommending that to people because it's so expensive. For me to say to a beginner who doesn't even know if they like doing this stuff yet, oh yeah, you should save up and go get a Tanzbar, that seems to me to be a bit ridiculous, I think. Anyway, I'm not going to be able to go through this whole process with everyone and about every characteristic of the machines, but this is the method I use to do almost any decisions I need to make. I think about it as, okay, on a level of 0 to 10, how much do I want to do this? Okay, is it good for me? Is this a wise decision? Is this something that will lead to other good situations? You know, you can put anything in these categories and then solve problems based on this stuff. This is how I figure out just about everything. This process. I don't always write it out though, because sometimes it goes on in my head. But lists, charts, boards, marker boards. Get a marker board. Helps you with ideas. Alright guys, this is Scott signing off. I think we've done a good job and I think we've gotten to the bottom of it. You'll just have to go through this process for yourself. I can't tell you, I'm sorry. When people ask me, I almost always try to dance around the question. If you notice in the comments, I don't like giving a direct answer and saying, well, TR8 for sure, because that's not necessarily true. I would love to hear your comments. If there's something that you think I left out that you'd like me to talk about, or if you know a better way to do this, let me know. So until next week, this is Scott saying peace, have fun.